UFC 314 is coming up in about a month, and I feel like people are already writing off Diego Lopes' chances of beating Volkanovski. And even though Volk is coming off of two back-to-back knockout losses, I feel like a lot of people, the narrative is, well, Volk, as long as he just grapples early on, as long as he just takes him down in the first two rounds, gasses out Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes has a horrible gas tank. He has no heart. In rounds 3, 4, and 5, Volk is going to take over and either finish him in the late rounds or beat him in a dominant decision. Definitely possible. Volk definitely has a good shot at winning this fight, but I feel like Lopes is being written off in this fight for a few reasons. I'm going to go in depth for the main ones. So first off, the grappling. Volk just has to grapple early and he's won the fight. He's just going to do him like he did Yair. He's going to throw him down in the first two rounds early on, control him, beat him up. Lopes is going to gas out, and then eventually he's going to give up like Yair, and Volk is going to win the fight. I just don't think that that's going to happen. I know a lot of people are saying that this is the narrative. Volk has a very clear path to victory. I don't think it's very clear for a few reasons. So for grappling, I do think Lopes, his jiu-jitsu is obviously phenomenal. I think he's going to get close, potentially, to subbing Volk. I don't think that he submits Volk. That's not really what I'm trying to say. Ortega couldn't submit him, and he had a locked-in submission, and Volk, he has no neck. He's not going to tap. I doubt that he gets submitted, unless Lopes maybe hurts him and drops him. Even then, I don't really think that he's going to submit Volk. But this idea that Volk just has to shoot a few takedowns, he's going to go 2 for 2 on takedowns, control him for like 8 minutes out of the 10 in the first 2 rounds, and then Lopes is going to gas. I don't think that Volk is going to have much success grappling, especially early on. I think that we have seen him offensively grapple, but Yair, he's much more like frail, and his takedown defense is just awful. It is just not good, especially when you compare it to Diego Lopes. He's not as easy to take down as people think. I think that the only way that this really goes to the ground is if Lopes starts like pulling guillotines, which is possible. I think he's done this before, or he allows it to go to the ground, which I don't think that he will. I don't think that that's smart. Or if he's going to jump for a submission and he goes for the back, but he falls off and then Volk controls him and wins a close round. I could see that happening. Volk has very good fight IQ, but maybe Volk's able to hold him against the cage to rack up control time and just waste time. But even that, I don't think that he's going to be successful. I kind of think Diego is also a lot bigger than Yair, where I don't think he's going to have much success. And yeah, again, people compare the Yair fights, but just because he was controlled by Dan Ige in the later rounds, which he didn't even really get taken down, he kind of just fell down. It wasn't like a real takedown. And I think that he just assumed, okay, I'm up 2 rounds. There's a minute left. I know he can't finish me from here. Let me just stay on bottom. I don't think that if that was in the first round that he's going to get controlled, in my opinion. And I think that Evelev, people say, oh, well, he got held down by Evelev, which he almost submitted him. Evelev is better at securing takedowns and control time than Volkanovski, in my opinion. He even controlled Aljamain Sterling, who I wouldn't even say that he's really small for featherweight. I feel like he's kind of an average featherweight. And honestly, again, the only thing that worries me for the grappling is if he jump submissions or whatever, which I don't think he's going to do. I think that he's going to be smart enough to know his best chance is on the feet. But with that being said, Lopes, a lot of the narrative and a lot of what people are saying is that this is very similar to the Yair Rodriguez fight a few years ago, which is Volkanovski's one of his best performances, an all-time performance for Volk. He even got the finish after dominating him in the first 2 rounds. Again, I've already said some of this stuff. If you rewatch that fight, Yair didn't really let his hands go or anything in the first few rounds. He was very patient. He's much worse on the ground. And Yair was just being backed up and very patient early on. I don't think that Volk is going to do this to Lopes because he has to respect the power more. And because Yair, he wanted to get close because Yair is known for his kicks. And his takedown defense isn't great, so he could take him down. I even think, if I'm not mistaken, that Yair got taken down by Holloway, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. He did do very good in that fight, but still, I think that Lopes is going to be backing him up, or they'll meet in the center. I don't think that Volk's going to be backing him up, at least for the first 3 rounds. And I think that Lopes also has a much better chance at finishing Volk with his hands, like an uppercut or something in the pocket, than Yair does with one of his crazy kicks. I think that it's way more likely that Lopes finishes him than a Yair Rodriguez finish. Lopes also has a better chin than Yair, and I don't think that he gets hurt by the same shot that Volk hurt Yair with. And also there's the headbutt. I'm not saying that that's why Volk won. I think that Volk would have beat Yair anyway and probably would have finished him. Maybe it's later on in the fight, but that still is something that happened. So since I don't think that this fight is going to have much grappling, and I think it's mainly going to take place on the feet, how does their striking, how does it compare with one another? So Volk, obviously, he's one of the best technical strikers of all time, one of the greatest strikers of all time. He's definitely the better striker of the two. His footwork, his distance management is some of the best in the sport. He has a surprisingly long reach at like 71 inches. I don't think that he has the reach advantage, but it's close. You know, for his height, he has a very long reach. His output, his cardio is unreal. You cannot match it. However, there is a massive power and chin advantage on the feet. That it's such a big difference that, again, it may cancel out, in my opinion. Lopes, he's right up there with Ilya and Emmett when it comes to power on the feet in the featherweight division. We don't know how Volk's chin is. I personally think that Volk, his chin is completely 100% recovered. He's taken over a year off. I don't think that Ilya knocked out Volk because it was a chin problem because he was coming off of a knockout loss. I think that he knocked out Volk because he just landed the perfect shot and he knocks out everyone. Similar to Lopes. If Lopes knocks out Volkanovski, it is not because Volk's chin is gone. It's just that he's facing harder hitters than guys he's faced in the past, and he is hittable. He does get hit. So Lopes can absolutely knock him out. But again, I think that Volk's chin is better than it was a year ago, which may be a hot take. And also other factors. Volk hasn't fought in a year. He's 36 years old. He's not even like a young, he's almost 37. Lopes is just now entering his prime. He's rapidly improving. And Lopes also carries power late. He hurt Ortega bad at the very end of the third. So I think Lopes has more than one round to knock out Volkanovski, in my personal opinion. Now, a lot of people will say Lopes, he has a bad gas tank. Again, it goes along with the narrative. If Volk just survives and grapples the first two rounds, he could stand and bang with him and the fight's over. I do not think so. I don't think that Lopes's gas tank is that bad. I think a lot of that comes from him gassing out in the third round against Evloev and Ige. Again, both fights short notice, and Ige, he had to weigh in like 3 times, 145. Then Ortega missed weight, so they did a catch weight at like 155. And then he pulled out, and then he had to weigh in with Danny Ige at 165. That just was not the best version of Lopes, and we saw that in the Ortega fight, where his cardio looked amazing in the third, and he did not gas out at all. And Ige, this may be a hot take again, Dan Ige stepping up on 2 hours' notice had the advantage over Lopes. He didn't have to cut weight. He had a fight coming up in 3 weeks, so he was in camp and he was in his that's when you're a few weeks out from your fight, that's when you're in your physical prime. And Dan Ige already has a good chin. At 165, without him cutting weight and Lopes having to cut weight, he was never going to knock out Ige. And Lopes always starts off super fast. So it was like Lopes just had a massive disadvantage in that fight, which I know is maybe a hot take, but still. But yeah, without a weight cut, I think Lopes, I think he could have knocked out Ige if Ige cut down an extra 20 pounds. But yeah, that's the main reason why I think that his gas tank isn't that bad, in my opinion. And I do think that, you know, he could keep up in the third and fourth round. I don't know about the fifth, but we'll have to see. But lastly, my early prediction for this fight. How do I see it going? Again, things can change. We'll see on fight week. I'll make a much more in-depth breakdown. This is just an early pick, how the fight's going to go. Volk, he's going to be landing the jab a ton. Lopes, Ortega was landing it on him. I think Dan Ige, a lot of people land the jab. Volk is going to be landing the jab, getting out of range, fighting on the back foot, throwing kicks. He's not going to be like Dan Ige. He's not going to be throwing in the pocket with him. When Lopes does get close, I think Volk will probably clinch and try to walk him to the cage. I don't think that he's going to have much success taking him down. He may get caught with a big knee or uppercut. I could also see that when they get close. I think that Volk is in more danger because I just don't see him having a ton of success on the ground. I think I'm confident in Volk staying safe on the ground, but I don't think that he's going to be controlling Lopes in the early rounds. Lopes, another hot take. I know people talk about Volk's kicks, his leg kicks. Lopes has better leg kicks than Volk, and they are much more damaging. We saw that against Ortega and Ige. They were having trouble walking. He was ripping the leg kicks. And even Ilya. In the first round, what made Ilya versus Volk, the first round, so close is Ilya. He landed so many good leg kicks on Volk, where, again, Volk it has okay defense, but he does get hit, and he doesn't always check leg kicks. He was spinning Volk around, landing the leg kicks. It's just he didn't throw them that often. Lopes, though, throws the leg kicks a lot more often. He may not throw as much as Volk, but he's going to have the more damaging shots. Lopes has good takedown defense. I don't think that he's in much danger, Diego Lopes, especially in the early rounds. And he doesn't throw many head kicks, but I could see him catching one with Volk. He caught Ortega with one, not super clean, but it's going to be a little bit easier to land on Volk. I think that's another possibility. I think Volk is going to try to stall for the first few rounds, similar to the Ilya fight, and hope that Lopes gasses out. I think the only likely outcomes are Volk decision or early rounds KO for Diego. Obviously, a submission is possible for Lopes. I don't believe so. Volk late rounds finish is also possible. I just don't see it happening. I think Lopes is tough. Right now, though, again, I think most people would agree those are the only two outcomes that are likely. I think Lopes is going to get the early round KO. That's my early lean. I want to pick Volk. I love Volk. I think he's a top 5 fighter of all time, arguably top 3, in my opinion. That may be a hot take. He has one of the best resumes in the sport. I would love to see him get the belt back. But people are underrating Diego, and I think Alexander Volkanovski is in a lot more danger than people are saying. And it's also, I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to be super confident thinking that Volk's going to get the belt back and then he gets knocked out immediately. But I do believe Diego Lopes will get the early round KO. I think he's the underdog right now, so we'll have to see. I'm leaning towards a lot of underdogs recently, kind of leaning towards JDM getting the knockout, Diego Lopes. We'll see with the Pereira and Ankalaev fight. But yeah, let me know who you guys have in this fight.